Welcome to this week's episode of Drop the Mic. Joining me today is Brendan Plake. And in this episode, we will be talking about how there's a lack of socialization in society and the next steps to enhance it. Take a look. Brendan, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
Great to have you here.
I'm excited.
You know, the world has changed over a period of time. Like socializing, communicating, that has been the pivotal factor, when it comes to connecting. But over the years, it has changed. It has evolved. Things are becoming more technical.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of socialization, it has become a bit puzzling. But how would you describe socialization as of today?
As of today, I would describe socialization as broken compared to, I think, what I've experienced in the past. I think with the rise of technological social means of connecting, like social media and even message boards and chat rooms and all the things that have come from having the internet, one of the biggest problems is that we started to believe that was filling in place of being in a room with somebody. As we started to get more and more connected online, we started to lose sight of the fact that being physically present with people has a lot to do with the quality of the socialization that we have and how fulfilling it will feel afterwards and how much more we'll desire that kind of activity. So I think it's broken because there's been world events that have separated us, like COVID and lockdown, and basically spending an entire year of a lot of people having to be either alone or very limited contact with people. And also on top of that, we have the social media aspect that has pulled people away from each other as well. And I've seen it a lot in places that I go regularly. I attend church every Sunday for the most part, and even there, the place that you are often told is the best place to go if you want to meet people, it's become so sort of transactional in the sense that people come, they only do what they're there to do, which is to whatever, and then they leave. And maybe that's how it is in other places. I don't often go out to like bars or to clubs or anything like that, but those types of things don't seem to be as like desirable in this time as compared to what people want to do, which is go home and talk online about a show they watched or whatever. And so I think that that's something that needs to be fixed for sure.
Yeah, like it just feels different talking online and then in person, because in person, the camaraderie is there. Like, you're happy to get together, you're happy to meet the person. Mm-hmm. But online, it's just temporary. You meet them online for that one time, and you won't talk to them again until maybe later in a couple of months or next year, and so on.
Yeah, and I think it's also so anonymous, unless you know the person already, that it's not necessarily even getting to know a person, because who's to say they're not pretending? Who's to say they're not lying? They've made shows all about catfishing, which is the the process of people literally tricking other people into believing there's someone else. And so it brings about a whole different list of problems that I used to say, I love technology, like people who are complaining about these things, they just don't have the right ideas. But it's really about the use of technology and how wisely we've integrated it into our lives or unwisely. And I think a lot of people ended up only relying on those anonymous connections or the long distance ones that they could maintain because of the ease of access. It costs a lot less effort to get online on Xbox and play with your friends versus to bring your PC to their basement and have a LAN party. But one of those things is supremely cooler than the other one. I know because I've done them. And it's like things like that that have really stopped people from focusing on the benefits of truly being together.
Absolutely. When it comes to connections, it's No, it's great. Like as we established, and I'm pretty sure you would like to just go out there and talk to people and meet with people, but with how puzzling you've viewed it lately, when did you start to notice that there wasn't any social connection? Like when did that originate?
A lot of that started to come when I moved from where I grew up and where I was born in Connecticut down here to South Carolina, and I had to make new community. And I needed to build a new set of friendships. And, I had people that I still talk to in Connecticut, but it was only via Discord or in a text thread. And that just wasn't sufficient. And then as I started to encounter challenges, life as I was growing up and having kids and like all these different things that were happening, it really highlighted the lack of like human power that I was having, and how much harder it was to create a new community out of nothing versus where you just grow up in it and then it's there. The friends that you make when you're younger, they're just your friends because you went to school together or whatever. It's not like you specifically sought those people out. Now I have to go specifically do something that I never learned how to do. And it doesn't get easier because nobody knows how to do it. And now we're all just kind of floundering in the dark. Plus, we've had the added obstacles of this seemingly easy way to connect with people that's actually kind of like a relationship vampire, where it's sucking more out of the relationship than it is adding to it. And it's just creating these like lifeless connections that when push comes to shove and you actually need somebody to be in your corner, there's nobody there because you really weren't able to connect fully with anybody. And I think another part of it too is that we're taught from a young age that we're supposed to, continuously level up our life and work on our progress towards career and these types of things. And I think that's another thing that draws people away from each other. And it's a conversation that I've had with some of my friends that are my longest standing friends, which unfortunately I only talk to over the phone or on text now because they live, across the country. But it's a thing that I've mentioned before, which is how valuable it is that I still know them and can still communicate with them, because we've known each other across all these different periods of time and we've seen the different versions of ourselves. And that's something that's just so interesting to think about. I think a lot of people forget that as they grow, they change. They think that life stays the same, and they think that they're supposed to stay the same, and that they, will find a set of likes and that they'll just settle on that. But as you get older, your food tastes change. It's not uncommon for old people to like food that most people don't like because of the smell or the taste. And that probably has to do with their biological, the weakening of their sense. And so they need stronger food. That's just like a thing. And there's a lot of those types of biological things that we don't ever pay attention to as we grow, that all of a sudden they'll create a problem with no solution because we get separated. And then not only that, but we're also taught to be separate and to, build your home and to have your family, but your family is just a unit of you and your spouse and then the children that you'll have. And it's the weird individualist idea that you have to be this like strong standing person for yourself, and then you can go connect with people. That's not how community works. Communities are relying on each other on purpose. And when we look all around in nature, we see that the best communities are the ones that work together and they can accomplish things. And I'm talking about like bugs, because when you look at ants, they're working so hard to be able to do whatever it is that they want to do or have to do because of the way that the way that their biology works. But they're able to do it together, and they're able to do it better than we are. There's this funny video that I've seen online where they have a test of a group of ants who are trained to move a T-shaped object through a doorway, and then they have the same thing scaled up for human size, where a group of humans have to do the same task, and the ants always beat the humans. They're able to function together far better than humans can because we let our individualism get in the way. And a lot of the times it's because of the fact that we are not connecting with people. We're just, passing by and never paying attention.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Like it seems like an expectation versus reality.
Yeah.
Like you would expect that person you connected with virtually as like your long time friend. And maybe it may be for some, but in general, that type of friendship sometimes it could potentially fade away.
Right.
And the one you know in person, you're always gonna remember that.
Right.
The memories,
Mm-hmm.
the memories you had along the way,
Yeah.
and it just means a lot.
Yeah.
I know you are a proponent for getting out there and connecting with people and building a new community. What inspired you to engage and connect with people?
I mean, the biggest thing is my belief in what we're supposed to be doing here. I think the way that my brain works, I don't understand why people pursue religion or philosophy or any of these types of things without a goal of doing something with it. And so for my whole life, I've always been like, okay, well, now that I've heard this thing, if it was a church sermon or if I read a book and it told me a way of life that could be better, I try it out. And I've been so inspired because like I said, when I go to church, I started to see that there was not too much connection happening. And that was kind of upsetting in a way because the entire point of going to that place is not for a majority of the things that people are doing. It's to be together. And you see in movies and sometimes you can watch old documentaries and even in smaller communities, probably in America right now, there are churches that meet every Sunday and have a meal afterwards, or they provide space for people to get together and just be together. There's no other thing except for to be. And I've always wondered why we don't do more of those types of things. And, you could talk about a million different reasons in America because there's capitalism that gets in the way, people trying to sell stuff, sell those experiences, trying to, capitalize off of the fact that people need a place to go. If you took a group of 100 people and you told them to go into a city and try and find a place to gather, it would be very, very challenging. But if you took the same group and just stuck them out in a wilderness area, anywhere would be fine. And just getting together would be a fun, experience because you'd be able to talk to somebody that you've never thought to talk to before. You'd be able to hear stories from people who lived completely different lives than you have, who grew up in different places that you did. And then maybe you have people who you have known for a long time, and you'll be able to remember who they were before and see who they are now and make those comparisons because you're getting the full breadth of who they are from that interaction versus something that is less intense like online, or unless you have a really, really dedicated group of friends, like a group chat's never going to be as good as, a camp group that you go out into the woods with, even if it's once a year, but just to have a time together. And I think that's I really do believe that's part of our biology. We're creatures as much as we are other, human and whatever. But we have a body. We've been given needs of having to feed and clothe ourselves, but also I think we need to be in community with each other because it's not great when you see other animals that are alone. And why would we also be this? Why would we want to be that way? Why wouldn't we want to gather together if that's what we're supposed to do? And so I've tried it. I've thought, that seems like a better way, so let me just give it a shot. And when it works so good that I don't want it to end. And I would love for these things to keep going. And even in my work, I get to connect with students all the time. And it's just so much better to be able to sit around and talk about things that we like versus having an agenda and trying to do a thing and, making it all focused on something else. When you just gather together, it's so much better, and you can communicate better, you can learn more, you can experience a much better, more rich life experience, which will then, I think, lead you to desire better things and create a better, environment for people to do that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the more we gather, the more you will see.
Yeah.
To see the city just flourish.
Yeah. And gather together without the pretense of having something to be done.
Yeah.
Sure, it's good to do community work and to serve people who need to be served, but sometimes you just need to get together with them too, and just spend time with them. And it's just interesting to me that in a lot of these ministry environments where they are feeding homeless people or whatever, they'll go out and they don't really do much communication in terms of like, just, hey, tell me a story. I mean, you've probably lived a crazy life, and that kind of thing, like getting to know them as people. And I think that we would do a lot better if we could remember that humans are human, and that just like me, this other random person, you, everybody has a story to tell that's wildly different than the one that I've been experiencing so far. And I don't think that we should look down on that. I think it's a valuable resource that can be tapped and used to create better life.
Absolutely. You know, like with socialization, of course, it has its problems. It has its flaws as well. But as you discussed earlier, the common complications with socializations, whether it be individualism, capitalism, sometimes pride, what do you think are other major causes that contribute to the society's lack of socialization?
I think it's weird to me that especially in America, that everything is built so spread out. I think that's one huge factor. Is like I have been doing food delivery for a company lately to make a little extra money. And one of the things I think about most when I have to go and deliver some of these things is, how do these people, like, what do they do that they live all the way out here, like 30 minutes from a populated area? And it's just bizarre to me that people want to have this like completely isolated home, but then also at the same time, they'll complain when the road's not paved to get there, which is a community resource. And they'll complain when the electricity lines can't be run, which is a community resource. And it's very strange to me that we've built a lot of our ideals on being separate, but still somehow united, versus just having, like, just literally physical example, in Europe, the entire continent is connected by trains. And that's insane, because you can go over there, get into one country, but then you can go to a bunch of other ones. And in just a couple of hours, you can have seen so much more than you've ever imagined. And there's nothing like that around here. We live on the East Coast, which has, I think, one Amtrak train that runs from the south to the north, and it doesn't even go the whole way. And I don't even know what the options are to go west, but there's not that many. And it's just like stuff like that. The way that we built the world is very strange to me sometimes, because it is very short-sighted, it seems. A lot of the problems that we have to fix with infrastructure really stem from the fact that we just never had the forethought to think what's going to be the best version of human life, not just what's good for me. A lot of people are just like, oh, well, I want to have this thing. Well, is that good for you to have? I mean, it's not necessarily a requirement that you are able to be so isolated, because, like I said, there's going to be a time when you're going to need something that you need to be connected with people. And I think one of the biggest inspirations for me in this area was when I was in college. I took a course about, I think it was a history of TV course, and they did a section about Disneyland and the show Disneyland, which Walt Disney, when he initially built Disneyland in California, the way that he funded it was by having a TV show. And all they did on the TV show was show behind the scenes of them making the next, like, they started with Cinderella, and then they had all these, or maybe it was Sleeping Beauty, but either way, he would show behind the scenes of them animating that and giving people sneak peeks. And then he would build the park, and he would show behind the scenes of that. And he used all the money that he was making off the show to do that. And then he had this great idea to buy a bunch of land in Florida, and he was going to build Epcot, which stands for the Experimental Prototype City of the Future. And it was supposed to be a place where you can go and ride the rides in Epcot now. And a lot of that stuff was not supposed to be amusement park rides. It was supposed to be infrastructure for a city that allowed people to be able to move and work and live in a much better way. And then he died, and then his brother had no idea what he was trying to do, and then it just turned into what it is now, which is fine. People love to go to Disney. It's a cool place to go. It's almost tragic to think of how it could have been if he had the ability to introduce that, because it could have changed everything. It could have changed the way that we decided to build the rest of the nation. And, I don't know the history specifically on the interstate system and all that stuff, but the fact that we rely on cars for so much is pretty wild, because especially given the fact that it's so expensive to maintain and like all of these different things, that's a huge barrier for people getting together, is lack of transportation. And I mean, it's also a barrier for people getting a good job and all that other stuff too. And so it's like all of the communion of life happened, to me, so much better in older cities because those cities were built close.
Yeah.
And I think when people are nostalgic for the old way of life and like, oh, I love how things used to be, I think that's what they're nostalgic for, is the fact that there was a main street that was like right down the street from your place and your town was real small. And now there's just so many people. Well, how do you do that? Well, the answer is not building a bunch of houses out in the middle of the woods. The answer is potentially to build up, or to build different means of transportation so that people can get together and also be together while they're being transported. Like, think about the fact that on a train, you still have the potential to meet somebody that you can't meet on the highway. The only people that you're going to meet on the highway are the people who are angry at you.
Yeah.
Or if you get into a wreck. And like, that's not good either way. But when it comes to the alternatives, how many times have you seen people tell stories about cool interactions that they had at the airport or on an airplane? But again, super expensive, right? So there's got to be more thought put into how we get around and where we're coming in from and where we want to go to, so that we can have more opportunities for people to have true social interaction without the trappings of all the garbage that comes up trying to get somewhere, being in a rush, whatever. And I think these sort of planned systems can remove some of that simply because it's all time-based. You'd have to, schedule yourself around train schedules or bus schedules and things like that. But that seems to me to be a much better way to increase the amount of socialization you have throughout the day than any other, because we spend so much time moving around. And so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just pretty, ubiquitous that there's a lack of like dialogue, of course. But as you said, making something for all, not everyone may be satisfied, but at least for a vast majority, we can still get somewhere. There's progress.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not even a utopian thing. It's not like we need this like massive collection of peaceful people, blah, blah, blah. It's just people who are like, okay, I don't necessarily agree, but let's see how it goes, because the way that it's been done up to now, it's not that great. So why not try something else? Why not get other companies involved to start changing the transportation layout and change the way that we, we live and work and operate?
Absolutely. For those who understand what the world is going through, the lack of socialization in society. People understand what is going on, what's being done, but in terms of socializing, right? There's that one person who wants to go out there, meet someone, but they're a bit hesitant. What do you think the next steps that they can take to prevent being in an unsociable space?
I think it's a lot like jumping into a pool. You have to just go for it, because as somebody who struggles with ADHD and task paralysis, it's sort of the same idea. Whenever I have to do something, I put it off immensely because for whatever reason, my brain just feels better doing that. But then as soon as I dive in, I'm like, this is not bad at all. I don't know why I was so hesitant to start this. And I think that that's what happens a lot with these social situations where people, they overthink or overanalyze how they'll be received, or they worry too much about how people are going to interpret their everything, like the way they dress, the way they talk, and all these things. And also they're just, there's so much fear wrapped up in socialization, especially when you haven't done it for a while, that I'd say the biggest and best step that you can take is to just go for it and do it in small ways. Like, don't necessarily jump out and try and make a best friend right away. But next time you're in a store, say something to somebody because we pass by so many people throughout the day that we don't talk to. And those are prime candidates for you to practice and flex that muscle of like, oh, hi. And that's the other thing is like, we have this scripted conversation that everybody has. Hey, how are you? Oh, I'm good. How are you? Literally, everybody says that. Flip that up. Change it to something else. Ask about their favorite part of the day. Say, did anything make you smile today? Or are you upset about anything today if they seem like they're harassed? There's plenty of things that can be done. We're not robots. And everybody keeps complaining about AI taking jobs or whatever. But guess what? We're doing a lot of robotic stuff. So who are we compared to that? If AI is more interesting and people want to talk to it more, that's telling. I mean, that's a huge neg on our social skills if we're wrapped up in the fact that chatbots are nicer to us because humans forgot how to be humans. And so I think practicing and flexing those muscles is only going to make it better. Trying to figure out how to talk to an old person, if you're uncomfortable, especially if you're uncomfortable with that, do a little by little. But that's something that can give you an enormous amount of value because elderly people have lived so much life. And I think the only problem is that nobody's asking them, hey, what did you do? What's your experience? Or maybe there's a lot of pride, like you said before. And that's something that, whatever, then you just move on. But I think a lot of people authentically want to be able to share their experience. I hope a lot of people would like to authentically want to listen and empathize with others to figure out what they've been through. And I think that if we had more communities built around that, then we would be a lot better off because then it would be this beautiful exchange of life versus the transactional sort of way we do it now, where we feel like we have to keep everything to ourselves because it's valuable or whatever, or we don't understand the value of letting things go versus hoarding it all to ourselves. And it's just like this weird mindset you get into that only gets compounded with fear. And the less you do it, the worse it's going to get. And so you really just have to go for it.
Absolutely. Well said, Brendan. It's great. It was awesome having you on. It was great to hear everything you had to say. For the people out there who want to learn more about you and more of your work, where can the people find you?
I have a YouTube channel that you can just search for Brendan Plake on YouTube and you'll see it there. You can also check out my Instagram, and I guess I have a TikTok. I posted something recently, and that's just one, but still, it's on there. And yeah, you can also come check out, if you live in the Spartanburg area, I work out of the Mayfair Art Studios in Spartanburg, so you can always stop by the office there. And we've got tons of things going on. And also, I like to have people just come hang out at my house. So hit me up.
Awesome. Well, that wraps up this episode. Brendan, it was great having you on.
Great to be here.
And I'm your host, Michael Usor. This is Brendan Plake. And if you enjoy content like this, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and share. Well, that wraps up this episode. Make sure to take care of yourself and each other. We'll see you soon.